I added my wife's parents as emergency contacts at the hospital for our child. One night, I showed up late after a shift and the nurse said only family was allowed in. They said you weren't the father. My wife brushed it off, they were just scared. I didn't speak. I just stared at her. 3 days later, My name's Mark. I'm 37. I work overnight maintenance at the VA hospital here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I've been married to Elise for 6 years. We met through a mutual friend back when I did construction. She was quiet, kind, and had a good sense of humor. She worked hard, always had a plan for everything. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. We had our son Jordan 3 years ago. He was a surprise, but I stepped up. I put Elise's parents as the emergency contacts at the hospital because they were close and available. My family's back in Georgia, and we barely talk. Elise's parents, Ray and Margaret, were always around. Helped babysit, came over every other weekend. I thought they were decent people. Strict, but supportive. I never imagined they'd be the ones to look me in the face and say I wasn't Jordan's dad. It happened 2 weeks ago. I was pulling a double shift at the hospital. Around 10:30 p.m. Elise texted me, "Jordan's got a fever. Taking him to the ER now. I'll keep you updated." It wasn't the first time. Toddlers catch everything. I texted her back to let her know I'd try to leave early. I managed to wrap things up and clocked out around 12:15 a.m. I headed to Cheyenne Regional, just 10 minutes from my work. When I walked in, I went straight to the ER desk. I told the nurse who I was and asked to see my son. She looked up, frowned, then said the words that stopped everything. "I'm sorry, only immediate family is allowed in. The grandparents already said you're not the father." I stared at her, thought maybe I misheard. "What did you say?" "They said you're not the biological father," she repeated. "They said it'd be best if you waited here." My first instinct was to lose it, yell, demand to be let in. But instead I went quiet. Something inside me just shut down. I nodded slowly, turned, and walked down the hallway like I belonged there. I'd worked enough nights at hospitals to know how to blend in. Nobody stopped me. I found the room. Elise was sitting beside the bed. Jordan was asleep, four in his hand. She looked up at me, startled. Her eyes said it all. Not shocked that I was there. Not relief. Just guilt. "They were scared," she said. "They didn't mean anything by it." I didn't say a word. I looked her dead in the eye and sat down. My stomach was in knots. I didn't sleep that night. Barely even blinked. For the next 3 days, I went to work and came home like normal. Elise acted like nothing happened. But I couldn't shake it. Her parents didn't say that out of panic. That wasn't a slip-up. It was a statement. They knew something I didn't. And Elise didn't even try to explain. I started looking through the house. I wasn't being sneaky. I was just tired of being blind. I checked drawers, cabinets, old mail. I remembered a conversation we had years ago about her keeping letters and keepsakes in a shoebox in the closet. I found it tucked behind a row of winter boots and coats. Inside were photos. Old receipts. Envelopes. I wasn't snooping anymore. I was searching for the truth. The first thing that caught my eye was a photo. Elise and a man I'd never seen before. They were at some cabin, probably up by Casper or the Bighorns. They were holding hands. Not friends. Not coworkers. Intimate. The photo was dated 5 years ago, before we were married, but not by much. On the back was a message, "Forever yours, D." I kept digging. I found 4 more photos. Same guy. Different trips. One of them looked recent. Elise had the same haircut she got last year. Then I saw an envelope from a clinic in Denver. It was opened, and inside was a paternity test. The names on it made my head spin. Mother, Elise Whitmore. Child, Jordan Whitmore. Alleged father, Darren Whitmore. Result, 99.99% match. No mention of me. No test with my name. Just Darren. I couldn't breathe for a moment. My heart was pounding. I sat on the bed, holding the paper like it was burning a hole in my hand. That night, Elise and I ate dinner like normal. She laughed at something on TV. I played with Jordan before bed. I was acting, but I felt sick the entire time. At 1 a.m., after Elise fell asleep, I grabbed her phone. No password. I went through her texts. Darren, work, showed up 3 times that week. I checked her call history. Regular calls every few days. Most were short. One lasted 47 minutes. The last time she went to book club, there was a call to Darren right before and one after. The next day, I called out of work and drove to Fort Collins. Took half the day to find the right house. It was small, neat, had toys in the yard. I sat across the street, parked behind a delivery van. At 7:23 p.m. Elise pulled in. She got out with a tote bag and a bottle of wine. She knocked once. He opened the door. And they kissed. Not a hug. Not a polite peck. A kiss like you give someone you've been in love with for years. When she came home later, I was waiting on the porch. Calm. Too calm. How was the book club? I asked. She froze. It was fine. I nodded. Reached into my jacket and pulled out the photo. This him? I asked. Darren? Her mouth opened and closed. Where did you get that? I know everything, I said. I saw the test. I saw you with him tonight. Her knees almost gave out. She sat on the steps. Covered her face. It was before we got married, she said, voice shaking. We had broken up. I thought it was over with him. I didn't know Jordan wasn't yours until after he was born. I didn't want to lose you. You've been seeing him for years, I said. I didn't mean to, I held up a hand. You let me raise a child for 3 years. You let me believe he was mine. You let me bond with him. You let me love him like he was blood. And you never said a word. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know how. I was scared, no, I said. You were selfish. That night, I slept on the couch. Next morning, I drove to the courthouse. Talked to a lawyer that afternoon. Told him everything. I filed for custody, not because I wanted to hurt Elise, but because I wanted to protect Jordan. He didn't ask to be born into this mess. I was the one who raised him. I was the one who got up with him at 2 a.m. I was the one who taught him how to hold a spoon. Darren might have been the biological father, but he was nothing more than a name on a paper. And I wasn't about to let him take my place. Elise didn't take it well when I told her I was filing for custody. At first, she laughed like I was joking. Then her face changed. She got real quiet, almost cold. You're not even his real father, she said, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. You don't have a case. I looked her straight in the eye. I've got 3 years of being his only parent, I said. You want to let some man who's never changed a diaper walk in and play daddy? She didn't answer. I moved out that weekend. Rented a 1-bedroom near downtown Cheyenne. Took only what I needed, clothes, my toolbox, and a few framed pictures of me and Jordan. Elise kept Jordan with her, but I got court-approved visitation right away. Every Tuesday and every other weekend. That first weekend I had him, he didn't understand why he was sleeping in a different place. He kept asking where Mommy was. I told him Mommy was at her house and he'd see her soon. He nodded, curled up in my arms, and fell asleep. That night, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Darren, I didn't reply. The next day, he showed up outside my apartment. I was walking Jordan back from the park when I saw him leaning against a silver pickup truck. Tall guy, clean-shaven. Looked like the type who wore cologne to the gym. He nodded toward Jordan. Can I talk to you? Alone? I told him no. He said he was Jordan's father. I told him he was nothing but a name on a test. He stepped closer. I'm not trying to start something, he said. I just want to be part of his life. I stepped between him and Jordan. You were part of Elisa's life, I said. Not his. Not yet. He backed off, but I could tell this wasn't over. Elise must have been the one who told him where I lived. The next week, I got a letter from his lawyer. He was filing for shared custody. My hands were shaking when I opened it. I called my lawyer. He told me not to panic. He said the court would look at who raised the kid, who was there. Biology wasn't everything. But still, he said it would get ugly. He was right. Elise flipped sides. She started supporting Darren in the custody case. Said it was only fair Jordan know his real dad. I reminded her that I was the one who got him through RSV last winter. I was the one who sat with him for 4 hours while he got stitches after falling off the couch. I was the one who potty trained him. She didn't care. Or maybe she did, but not enough. I couldn't understand how she changed so fast. Then I found out Darren had moved into her house. Just like that. They didn't wait. Didn't give it time. 2 weeks after she and I split, the man who'd knocked her up years ago was brushing his teeth in my bathroom. Jordan started calling him Daddy D. That one almost broke me. The court ordered a family evaluation. Some woman came to both homes, watched how we were with Jordan, asked 1,000 questions. She spent 2 hours at my place and said it was stable and calm. Then she went to Elise's. When I read her report later, I saw a line that made my blood boil. Mother appears more emotionally comfortable with Darren than with the petitioner. So what? I wasn't here to win Elise back. I was here to be a father. The custody hearing was scheduled for the end of the month. Until then, everything stayed the same. But Elise was already trying to push me out. One Friday, I went to pick Jordan up and found his bag already packed, with new clothes I hadn't bought, toys I didn't recognize, a toothbrush that wasn't his. Elise came to the door and smiled like nothing was wrong. We figured it's time he starts having some things at your place, she said. Since Darren and I are going to be doing most of the parenting soon. I didn't answer. Just took my son and walked away. A few nights later, Jordan woke up at my place crying. I ran in and found him curled in a ball on the floor. I picked him up and held him close. He whispered, "Daddy D said if I cry too much I have to sleep outside." I pulled back. "What did you just say?" His eyes were wet, scared. He got mad when I cried at night. Said big boys don't cry. I called my lawyer at 7 a.m. Told him everything. He said, "Write it down. Every word. We'll need this." I did what my lawyer said. Wrote it all down. Every word. Every detail. I even made a voice recording on my phone, talking through everything Jordan had said. I wasn't sure it would matter, but I needed it for me too. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't imagined the look in my son's eyes that night. After that, I started noticing more things. Little things. Jordan flinched when I raised my voice, even just to call to him from another room. He didn't used to do that. He started wetting the bed again. And once when I picked him up, he had a faint bruise on his arm. When I asked him what happened, he just said, "I fell," and looked away. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Kids fall. They get hurt. But something didn't feel right. So I bought a cheap voice recorder. Slipped it into the bottom of Jordan's backpack. I know how that sounds. I didn't want to spy. I just wanted to protect him. The next time he stayed at Elise's, I waited until he got back, then plugged the recorder into my laptop. What I heard made my blood run cold. There were hours of silence. Background noise, some chatter between Elise and Darren. But around 8:30 p.m., I heard Jordan crying. Then Darren's voice, loud, sharp. "Stop crying. You're not a baby." A door slammed. Jordan whimpered. Then Elise, "You need to stop yelling at him like that." Darren, "Then you deal with it. I'm not doing this every damn night." Elise, "He's just scared. He's been through a lot." Darren, "Not my fault his real dad bailed." There was a long pause. Then Elise said something I'll never forget. "He thinks Mark is his dad. That's all that matters for now." That sentence broke something in me, not because of what it said, but because of how cold it sounded. Like I was a placeholder. Like I was nothing but a stand-in until Darren felt like being a full-time parent. I gave the recording to my lawyer the next day. He listened in silence. Then he looked at me and said, "We're going to file for emergency custody." We filed that afternoon. But the court doesn't move fast. It'd take days. Maybe weeks. And while we waited, something else happened. The day before the emergency hearing, I got a call from Elise's neighbor. A woman named Connie. We weren't close, but we'd waved a few times when I used to mow the front yard. She said, "I know we don't talk much, but I think something's going on over there with Darren." I asked what she meant. She said she'd heard yelling through the walls. Said she saw Jordan outside last night in his pajamas, barefoot, sitting on the porch alone. It was 39 degrees that night. He was out there for a good 10 minutes before Elise came out to get him, she said. "Something's not right. I thought you should know." That was the moment I stopped caring about playing fair. I drove straight to Elise's. It wasn't my night, but I didn't care. I knocked. She opened the door, startled. "You can't just," she started. "Where's Jordan?" I cut her off. "He's asleep. In his bed." I asked. She hesitated. "In his bed. He's on the couch." I pushed past her. Found my son asleep under a thin blanket. No pillow. No stuffed animal. Just curled into himself like he was trying to disappear. I picked him up. She shouted, "Mark, you can't just take him." I turned to her. "Try and stop me." I drove straight to the ER. Told them I wanted Jordan checked for bruises. Explained everything. The nurse asked him a few gentle questions. He said he didn't like Darren. Said Darren was mean when mommy goes upstairs. The doctor found old bruises on his ribs. Faded but still there. They called Child Protective Services. That was the turning point. CPS did their own investigation. Interviewed Elise. Interviewed Darren. Interviewed Jordan with a child therapist. They got copies of the recording. The ER visit. Connie gave a written statement. Within 48 hours, the court granted me temporary sole custody. Elise was allowed supervised visits only. Darren wasn't allowed near Jordan at all. And still, I wasn't satisfied. After I got full temporary custody, things got real quiet for a while. Elise didn't call. Didn't text. She showed up for her supervised visits but barely said a word to me. Darren didn't show his face again. I think his lawyer told him to lay low, especially after CPS stepped in. But I wasn't done. I had one goal left, permanent custody. And I wanted the truth in the open, every ugly piece of it. My lawyer filed for full legal and physical custody. We pushed to terminate Darren's parental rights. He was never on the birth certificate and we had proof of abuse and neglect. The court agreed to a full custody trial. It lasted 5 days. 5 long, painful days. Elise tried to lie at first. She said I was overreacting. That Darren was strict, not abusive. But the audio recording, the ER report, and Connie's testimony destroyed that. Then CPS took the stand. Their investigator described what Jordan had told them during therapy. That Darren once locked him in the bathroom when he wouldn't eat dinner. That he'd slapped Jordan hard enough to leave marks because boys don't cry. Elise sat there, face pale. Didn't look at me. Didn't look at the judge. She just stared at the table. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a scared, manipulated woman. Said she had no idea Darren was treating Jordan that way. But then my lawyer pulled out the recording. The one where she said he thinks Mark is his dad. That's all that matters for now. The courtroom was dead silent. The judge looked straight at her and asked, "Did you say that?" She nodded, eyes full of tears. "Yes." "And what did you mean?" "I didn't want to confuse him," she said, barely above a whisper. "And what about the bruises?" he asked. "The porch? The bathroom?" She didn't answer. The judge ruled in my favor. I got full legal and physical custody of Jordan. Elise was given supervised visitation only once a month for 1 year with the possibility to revisit depending on her progress in parenting classes and therapy. As for Darren, his parental rights were terminated. He wasn't allowed contact ever again. That part was satisfying, but it wasn't enough for me. See, the court ruling was one thing, but I had spent 3 years being lied to. 3 years raising a child I thought was mine, while Elise kept a secret that tore my life apart. So I made sure the people in her world knew who she really was. I sent the evidence, photos, letters, the paternity test, even a cut of the audio to her job. To her boss. They fired her. Turns out her firm didn't want someone with a CPS case, family court drama, and recorded neglect representing clients. Next, I filed a motion to have Jordan's last name legally changed from Whitmore to my name. The judge approved it. He was my son now, in every way that mattered. Then, I did something I hadn't planned. I told Jordan the truth, but in a way he could understand. I sat him down. Told him, "You know how some kids don't live with both parents? Well, your mom made some mistakes. Big ones. And I need to make sure you're safe. So for now, it's going to be you and me. Okay?" He nodded. "Okay, Daddy." As for Elise, she lost her job. Lost custody. Lost her reputation. Her own parents stopped talking to her after CPS showed them the files. They blamed me at first, but after they saw the truth, they apologized. In person, Margaret cried. Ray shook my hand. They haven't spoken to Elise since. Darren? He moved out of state. Colorado, I think. I heard he got arrested a few months later for assaulting his new girlfriend's kid. Repeat pattern. He's not a father. He never was. Just a selfish, angry man who didn't want a child. He wanted control. And I'll make sure he never gets near mine again. But I won't lie. I made mistakes too. I trusted Elise blindly. I didn't ask questions. I ignored red flags for too long. And I should have pushed harder when I first felt like something was off. For that, I carry guilt. But I've learned. Now I wake up every day knowing one thing: Jordan is safe. He's happy. He laughs more now. Sleeps better. He's just a kid again. And I'm not just raising him. I'm healing with him. We're building something honest, One day at a time. Because real fathers aren't defined by DNA. They're defined by what they do when everything falls apart. And I didn't walk away. I stayed. I fought. And I won.